Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about the Star Trek Discovery episode that has just aired on CBS All Access. I'm your host, Caliban, and this week we're talking about Episode 4 of Star Trek Discovery, The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry, which sounds suspiciously like a lost Harlan Ellison story, but never mind. I'm joined on the show by my regular co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, available on the Chronic Rift Network. It's Ella Pearson. Hi, Ella.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, but I'm a little sad after that episode.
Yeah, there were some sad things on that episode for sure. Ella, your dad is Scott Pearson, who is an author and a Trek author specifically, and a lot of his friends are Trek authors. So my question is, did it feel when you were growing up that you had a lot of Star Trek aunts and uncles?
Yeah, you could say it that way, actually.
Do you ever feel any pressure to read their books? Like, hey, Ella, how you doing? Did you read my newest book? Yeah, I'm working on it.
I think I've been young enough up until about now that I've gotten away with it.
So the clock's running now.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, speaking of one of those friends, we have another guest on our show tonight. It's William Leisner. He's a former guest on Enterprising Individuals, and he's the author of several books and stories in the Star Trek universe, the most recent of which is The Shocks of Adversity, a TOS novel. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. Bill, when you were on Enterprising Individuals, we talked about Yesteryear, which is a Star Trek animated series episode, and a great one at that. And I think the Star Trek cartoon, the animated show, is criminally underappreciated. Would you agree or disagree?
I would agree. I mean, it's never got the appreciation. It was on NBC, I think, for 2 years, and it disappeared and didn't really come back onto the radar screen until home video brought it back. And then that took a while for it to actually make home video. But, now that it's back, I think that we'll probably see a lot more attention and appreciation of it.
Yeah, I'm always surprised. Well, I guess I'm not surprised, but I'm always disheartened when I introduce people to it, and they're like, I didn't even know there was a Star Trek cartoon. So any listeners who don't know, it is available still, for now, on Netflix. Who knows if it's moving to CBS All Access, like probably all Star Trek shows are. But you can catch the animated show on Netflix, and I heartily recommend it. It features most of the cast from the original show, and many of the original writers and producers. And it's great. It's a really nice show.
Definitely worth adding to your Star Trek repertoire.
Yeah, and Yesteryear, that episode focuses specifically on Spock, young Spock, as older Spock has to use the Guardian of Forever to visit his past self. I don't know about you, but I didn't see any young Michael Burnham running around the Sarek household in that episode.
I don't know how the timeline works out, but she probably hadn't quite made it to Vulcan at that point in time.
Right.
But.
And it is kind of timey-wimey, so yeah, maybe that was a different timeline
Right.
or something. Yeah. Well, maybe I've speculated earlier on the show that we might get to see a CGI Sellat on Discovery, so I'd be up for some family pictures of Ichaya or something like that. That'd be cool. Well, we just watched The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry, the 4th episode of Discovery, and it's kind of a bookkeeping episode. What I mean by that is there isn't anything. There is something exciting that happens at the end of it, but it's an episode that sort of helps establish our world and backs off a little from Michael Burnham as the main character, and we get to see a little more of the ship. And we return finally to the Klingons and we see what's going on over there. And not everything is going very well for the cult of T'Kuvma, or whatever you want to call them. And of course, Volk, who has been handed the torch, literally, by T'Kuvma to lead his forces. What did you guys both individually think of the episode, Ella?
I thought it was good. I'm just like, I need a good cry. I'm really sad, and I'm always like any Star Trek episode with any sort of like alien animal. It really gets me. I'm always just sad.
Sure. Yeah. Are you talking about the tardigrade animal? The Ripper?
Ripper.
Yeah. And it's an interesting concept. I know that I've always tried to not, as little as possible, read any extraneous information or sort of like little clues and hints that you can get online. But I did read that the idea of the water bear, the tardigrade animal, which is a real microorganism on our world, would be very closely related to what this creature turned out to be. And they are, you gotta give it to them. As far as like setting a show in the history of Trek and definitely drawing on what's already there, they are certainly discovering something. They are charting a new course with this idea of the organic propulsion drive, and it's navigated by a giant water bear. So that's fun. Not exactly sure what to make of that. William, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was the best episode yet.
Great.
We had the 2-hour movie, which was the setup, and then we had the episode last week, which was kind of like a second pilot, a introduction to the Discovery and to Captain Lorca. Yeah. And this is kind of like the first episode proper, which isn't the right thing to say, but I mean, it really has shown how they intend to build on to these initial episodes and taking it, through the entire arc of the season.
Yeah. This is the Corbomite maneuver episode of the show, where they don't have to set anything up. They just get into the action, and we get to see sort of day-to-day life on the ship.
Right. They got all the pieces on the board, right. And now we start the actual moving and playing the game.
What do you think, as somebody who has written a lot in the universe of Star Trek and has had to come up, with his own sort of additions to it, what do you think of this idea of the mycelial network and the organic propulsion, the Spore Hub drive?
Well, when they introduced it last week, it was really went completely over my head. I was like, okay, warp-capable spores. And
right.
You feed them into Michael's little phone booth, and then Michael gets swept away to a dozen different planets and back home again. It's like, okay, well, it's science fiction, so let's go with it for now.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's definitely an interesting concept. I mean, we have seen. On Next Generation, we saw Gum-2, who was the organic ship, and we've seen other species, other biological species that were able to achieve faster than light flight through organic means. So it is established in the Star Trek universe already.
Yeah.
So it certainly makes sense that somewhere in Starfleet Federation science, somebody was looking at it.
I guess. It seems like other shows, that the idea of like a warp, not a warp drive, but like a space folding drive or a blink drive does exist in other sort of genres or other stories. But it seems like they had that idea, but then they wanted to really make theirs like different and sort of set apart. And I think a lot of it comes from Brian Fuller's affection for the real life Paul Stamets, the mycologist. And so they thought, all right, we know we want this, but we want to do it in a new way. We sure like that spore guy. All right, let's do that. What if there are spores that somehow like reach all throughout the galaxy and we can travel on them somehow? And yeah, even I don't know, like there was a look that the character Stamets had in the show when Burnham was explaining something to him this week. He'd look at his face like, okay. And that's still kind of my attitude towards it. But it is very imaginative. I have to give it that.
Yeah, and when you get right down to it, we can't break the light barrier.
Yeah, right. I mean, everything
in science says, well, no, you can't actually do that. So, right, but we've accepted that for 50 years. So,
right. We also get a return of, in a way, of Captain Giorgio this week in seeing her last will and testament message. Which was very affecting for Michael Burnham. And when I saw her name in the credits, I thought, oh, okay, so she'll be like a flashback or maybe a video or something. But then I thought, ooh, what if she's not really dead? Like, she's such a famous actress. Maybe we'll see her on the show again. And then there was a line on the Klingon ship about how the Klingons ate her. And I was like, nope, not going to see her anymore. That she's gone.
You picked her skull clean.
Yeah. Oh, boy, yeah. Although, to be fair, I know that things are a little different, it seems like, in the cult of T'Kuvma as far as respecting of the dead, but the Klingons probably ate the other Klingons, too. They probably ate T'Kuvma if they were that hungry.
I think I got that hungry, yeah.
So we're back with
the Kadaner party.
Right, yeah, there you go. Party of 24, yeah. So we're back on the Klingon ship this week, and apparently they've been there for 6 whole months where nothing has been going on, where they've been trying to fix their ship and get themselves out there in the war. And the leadership of Cole shows up later. The leadership of Vok is sort of questioned. And I think the other girl is Laurel. I'm not sure of her name exactly.
I believe that's right.
Yeah.
Laurel? Yeah.
Yeah. And she's his lieutenant, and they come up with this plan to take a component from the Discovery itself in order to fix their ship. What do you guys think of the Klingon politics that we've seen? We haven't seen much, but we've seen a little so far.
I'm confused.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, we're seeing 24 houses of Klingons of a different type that we have not seen previously.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do not know where it is going or how they are going to tie it into what we know of the Klingon Council and the or not the Emperor, but the Chancellor.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where I am.
And we also get a mention of the so I really don't know how it's going to work out now that he's not even on his ship anymore, like he's stranded on Discovery. And we get a reference to the Klingon matriarchs.
Yeah.
That apparently he has to go and confront and like submit himself to. And
sacrifice everything.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, he has to sacrifice everything. Now that he doesn't have anything left.
Yeah, he didn't really have. He's not losing much there.
What has he got to lose at this point?
His life.
Yeah, and it's
but then, yeah, I don't know where they're going.
It's interesting to see it as a sort of as a second kind of protagonist. I mean, I like the fact that it's not like I don't know, we're just cutting back to them, every so often, and they're like, wringing their clawed hands and being like, we're going to destroy the Federation. Like, I hope that we see this character go on this journey, much like Burnham is having to do, and, develop himself, and then maybe he won't. I don't know, maybe we'll find some way to end this war, or they'll come to some kind of understanding. A separate peace. That's my theory.
I mean, from what we know of canon, the hot war is going to cool down at some point in time.
Yeah, right.
How that happens is where the story falls in. And
yeah. And we got about 10 years to make these guys' foreheads fall off, too, so we got to work that out. I like the fact that Giorgio's will is like in this big case, because it contains her telescope, but it just keeps beeping like a smoke alarm with a low battery.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it. It's so annoying.
That's exactly what it was.
Change the battery. Yeah, change it. Well, I want to talk about my favorite character. Every week I have a new favorite character, but this week it's definitely Captain Lorca, who we see a lot more of his leadership and command style, and he is not above extreme emotional manipulation. There's the moment where he's real mad and frustrated because the spore drive hasn't worked right, and he just plays the transmissions from the mining colony to the entire ship of people dying and being shot and begging and pleading for their lives, to a bunch of people who have no control over whether the drive works or not. There's nothing any of those people can do, and yet they have to sit and listen to children die.
Yes, I mean the one child, Mommy, why are they attacking us? Are we going to die?
That was rough.
I mean, that was.
I like Lorca less and less each episode. I mean, I appreciate him like as a character, but just like as a person, I dislike him.
Bill, what do you think of Lorca and his captainship?
The one thing that caught me or caught my ear in this episode, Saru and Michael were having a conversation, and Saru says to Michael, Lorca isn't interested in what you are or what this creature is. It's what it can do for you. Right. And, it very much, you were seeing that Saru does not think very well of Lorca either. Right. And between, I mean, I don't think there's anybody on the ship who really likes Lorca.
Yeah. Well, except for Landry, but now there is no one on the ship that likes Lorca.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as I saw that happen, it was like, wow.
Yeah, I was shocked by that. And, earlier episodes, I tried to set up the Threat Ganglia watch to see what characters we thought were going to die in the future. I don't know if anybody would have had Landry in the pool, though.
No, I thought they were going somewhere with her. I thought she and Lorca, I thought we were going to see more of their relationship, but...
Right. I mean, she like you said, she was his one ally.
Right.
Strongest ally, at least.
Yeah, and plus, he's so manipulative that that actress is somewhat high profile for being on the show. I have to imagine that it's possible that there's some sort of twist or something. I mean, he's so manipulative, maybe like after Burnham leaves, he takes the sheet off and he's like, all right, you're okay, we're going to fix you up. Like maybe he just pretended that she died or something like that to motivate Burnham.
That would be some soap opera level stuff right there.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course. But yeah, she certainly was on board right up until she did something really stupid to please Lorca.
Right. And that was really stupid. She didn't wait to see, okay, is the creature sedated?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, apparently that sedation didn't work at all.
I thought it was a little strange for her character. She seemed like last episode when we saw her on like the landing party, she seemed super like just like prepared and level-headed and just all of that stuff. And then this episode, she just for the convenience of the plot, just yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Lorca should have played her death screams throughout the ship as well. Just another little addendum there.
I'm sure he has them on tapes to use whenever he needs to. Right,
or an audio message from her daughter, like back on Earth, like "I love you, Mommy. I'll see you next leave." I got some ideas for Mr. Slow Clap Lorca there. I'd like to talk about the ship. We see a lot more of the ship this week, which I thought was kind of cool. And also we learned that, so Lorca's got this, what looks like a chamber of horrors, with all the things that he's warmongering in there. And I thought this would be sort of a secret thing, but no, everybody, like Tilly walks in there, Saru everybody knows that he has this like dungeon in the bottom of the ship.
Yep, I felt exactly the same way. We saw that in the very last shot of last week. It's like, ooh, deep dark secret that everybody is very, And then this week, okay, here's my laboratory of horrors.
Right? Yeah.
Lorca does not care at all.
I am who I am.
Yeah. He's results oriented, no question. We also get to see when the spore drive activates. Now we know at least the sort of visual design reason for the shape of the saucer section of Discovery. Like both the saucer sections rotate, or at least like part of them is rotating, because we see them sort of spinning around before the ship does its little flippy alley-oop and then goes through the spore network, which is very, I don't know, it's visually arresting.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I mean, I saw that and it was like, that's really the visual effect you decided to go with. That's the two counter spinning things, and then the thing does a corkscrew, and it's
you were looking for maybe a puff of fungus, like you've stepped on a puffball, and there's just
oh my gosh,
a puff of smoke.
It reminded me of the jellyfish ship from JJ Trek.
Okay.
Because that one has the two spinning parts too, and it kind of rotates around, but it doesn't have the full separate saucer sections either, really.
Right. Bill, as somebody who's written Star Trek novels, what do you think about? There's a concession to advanced design and visual effects now that we live in the 21st century and can build a better looking show. But what do you think about like the technology creep in telling stories set in TOS's past on a future show?
It's exactly like you said. I mean, we are in the 21st century now.
Right.
Computers are a regular part of our everyday lives instead of some kind of exotic thing that's down in, that the geeks are dealing with.
Yeah.
You can't do what they did in the 60s. That being said, it's kind of strange to see things like, Spore Drive and, the holographic mirror that's like, is that really necessary? Why couldn't they just have a mirror in the quarters?
Kirk had a little round mirror that hung on his wall.
Right.
Yeah.
And, nothing wrong with that. And, if this was next generation, if this was the 24th century, absolutely no problem with that. But it's just one of those things that just goes, this is not your grandmother's truck.
Right. Yeah. I think David Mack would tell us that, the Discovery is a bleeding edge science vessel that's out on the fringe. So they've got all the good stuff.
Yeah. And, and if that's what you need to tell yourself to get over it, that's fine. And so, but, it's a modern show.
Yeah.
And, if you're going to entertain them, and you have to entertain the modern audience, you can't just, cater to these smallish group of, original Star Trek fans who are going to get all upset because, the carpet is the wrong color.
Right.
It wasn't that color on the Enterprise. Why?
Yeah. Well, there's nothing you can really do about that. But it's just funny that, as soon as Landry is hurt, Burnham initiates a site-to-site transport,
right,
which we've seen a million times on TNG, but of course was a huge plot point in the one with Kang. Can't remember the title of the episode, where they got a beam in. Kang and his Klingons have taken over engineering, so they have to do this very dangerous site-to-site transport to beam Kirk and company into engineering to stop them. And now it's just like, oh, computer, do it. And I'd like to see some of the conventions of having not as much tech as they had before. Maybe not to the point where Archer's Enterprise is using cargo transporters to transport people, and they really shouldn't. They were never planned to be used that way. But sometimes you're like, I know that we want to see something sci-fi and we appreciate the convenience, but there's something to be said in just walking somebody, getting a gurney and walking them to sickbay.
Right. I mean,
it wouldn't have helped anyway. She was really torn up pretty bad.
She was, She wasn't going to come through that.
No, she was not.
Unless Lorca has something up his sleeve.
Hey, I would not rule it out. Who knows what he's got in that this mad scientist lab. Well, let's check the crew manifest this week. Every week I want to look back and check out some of the new characters that don't have any lines, but they've just thrown them on there to make them look interesting. And today I want to focus on Flyhead Guy. Did you guys see Flyhead Guy? Ensign Goldblum is ready for duty on the bridge. They keep pushing all these like Robot Lady and all these other guys in, and it's like, just give me one Tellarite, give me one Andorian. Like, come on, guys. We haven't even seen those races in regular Trek for a while since, and you mentioned them almost every episode. So yeah, give me like Lieutenant Commander Pigface and get that going.
Yeah, I agree. Let's. I thought at one point it was like, okay, this is still they're doing to the TOS idea where the Enterprise was almost exclusively human, and there were the Vulcan ships that were almost exclusively Vulcan. But no, now you're seeing more and more aliens integrated into the crew too. So it's like, yeah, let's have a Tellarite, let's have a Andorian, the Vulcans are still, they don't like, there haven't been many Vulcans in Starfleet yet because they like to keep to themselves. And Spock was kind of the first. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Officially or not officially.
Well, I have a question about that you might be able to answer. We see in the pilot that Sarek brings Burnham to the Shensho and introduces her to Captain Giorgio, and it seems like, he's dropping her off. Like, that's it. She's going to be there. And as far as I understand, like, she was not a member of Starfleet and didn't go to the academy. So was he using his pull to just, like, get her a commission or something?
That's a good question. I think it was probably kind of maybe a field study type of thing, or an internship.
Oh yeah, or she's really smart. Maybe she tested out, like she took all the advanced placement courses.
Or it's here, try out this Starfleet ship, see what you think, and maybe we can get your credits transferred from the Vulcan Science Academy.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Question answered. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We also got to meet the new admiral this week. I didn't catch her name. I think it's Admiral Cornwall or something like that.
I believe that.
Yeah, the female admiral that gives the assignment to Lorca to go save this colony. And then I also thought there's a lot of Easter eggs in the show. We didn't even talk about last week the 3 convicts who I don't think are named on screen that Burnham is traveling to the Tellus mining facility with were named Stone, Cold, and Psycho, which is like, okay, all right. I guess if they're not going to be said on, if it's just script names, that's fine. But while they're getting the transmissions from the miners who are being attacked, somebody yells out, "Oh no, Zaphod is dead!" And of course, Zaphod must be a reference to Zaphod Beeblebrox from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That was last week's episode?
Oh no, that was this week.
That was this week's episode.
And I only caught it because I had the closed captioning on.
I missed that.
Yeah, I didn't hear it either.
So I appreciate.
Forgot his towel.
Yeah, that's right. He's bleeding. Get his towel. Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, did you guys have anything else that you wanted to single out as a favorite moment or something that really stood out about this episode, Ella?
I don't know. It's hard to have a favorite. Well, first of all, it's hard to have one favorite moment when the show gets so much better every week.
Yeah.
And I'm just so entranced by the whole thing. But I really liked the scene with Tilly and Michael, where she kind of basically tells her what to do and then leaves, and then Michael does it.
Yeah.
I was surprised that, well, not surprised, but I'm glad that they're kind of bonding, and I think it's interesting to see how, like, she seems so timid, but she's obviously a very good Starfleet officer and is going places.
Yeah, and that conversation, like a lot of conversations in the show, totally Bechdel compliant.
Yeah.
There was no mention. They weren't talking about men or anything like that in that scene. Mm-hmm. Bill, what about you?
I agree. I really do like the Tilly Burnham relationship that's developing. My favorite scene, though, was Michael watching Captain Giorgio's last will and testament, and just the fact that she was saying, "I assume that you're a captain now, and that you have your own command, and that there are all these people who are under you, who are looking up to you, and I'm giving you this family heirloom that is, because I consider you my daughter."
Yeah.
And the heartbreak that was in. I mean, I was not a Walking Dead watcher, so this is my introduction to Sonique Martin Green.
Yeah.
She's incredible.
Yeah, it was good. It was affecting.
She is. I mean, this episode and everything up until now. I mean, she's blown me away.
Mm. I'm just wondering, just from the JJ school of screenwriting and the idea of mystery boxes, what's inside the telescope, or like how is the telescope going to help them later in the series, save the day or get out of whatever problem they're in? That's just me, though. Yeah.
Well, I almost expected to be the Quentin Tarantino, just the bright light.
Oh, yeah. They lingered a little bit too long on her. Yeah.
It was like the Ark of the Covenant.
My question is, who went back and got that thing? Because the Shenzhou is just adrift, and apparently there are Klingons still living in a ship in this battlefield. So, like, very quietly, the Starfleet recovery team's like, "Shh, we got to get this telescope, and we got to get some old family albums and photo albums." And
legal.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. I mean, unless there is the computer has instructions to just box everything up once the ship is decommissioned and just throw it out into a photon torpedo or
site-to-site transport right into the escape pod. Sure.
Because I mean, I guess that was kind of the idea when that case was brought on board. It was just kind of shipped, and it was homed in on whatever Michael's current. They didn't explain that. They didn't explain that whole thing, but it's like, how the hell did they?
Yeah, what is the Starfleet mail system like?
Well, but it's like any, it's like any armed forces, even especially when the war is running, the mail's got to get out there. It's important. Mm-hmm. I liked a lot of this episode. I did think it was pretty strong, if it wasn't necessarily earth-shattering in some of its like revelations. I really liked Lieutenant Stamets this week. I don't think he and Lorca are done, because he's like one of those guys who's like, he has a rank and a commission, but he's not a military man at all. Like, he's clearly a scientist, and he is not totally on board, and he wants to do what he wants to do. And they're definitely, I think, going to come to loggerheads again over the issue of, you're doing this for me, not for science. And no, I actually kind of am doing it for me and for science. So I can't wait to see where that's going.
Yeah, I loved that he stood up to Lorca
so
adamantly and for so long, because I would be straight up terrified of that guy if I was on his ship.
Oh, for sure.
I have the theory that he didn't go to the academy. He was kind of given a commission just because of his theories and his brilliance.
Sure.
And he's not actually Starfleet, because he actually said, okay, I want off the ship, and I'm going to take my toys with me. It's like,
mm-hmm.
Why do you think you can do that?
Nobody who's been in Starfleet is actually going to say that.
Sure, yeah. He's was brought in by Starfleet Intelligence or something like that to do this work. Recruited
out of the Cochrane Institute, and just said, we'll give you a rank, and we're going to put you on a ship to do your experiments. And
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's I can't wait to see, and I think Anthony Rapp is doing a great job playing that role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we see on the teaser for next week's episode that things get kicked up into 11th gear. It looks like Lorca is captured by the Klingons, and he meets a familiar face, a familiar name, a new face, in the form of Harry Mudd. Who, if I'm doing my math right, I heard that he's going to be on like 8 or 9 episodes. So he should be on the show for the rest of the season at this point.
In one way or the other, yeah.
I'm so excited. I just have to say, to see Rainn Wilson as Harry Mudd, and just to have that much Harry Mudd, I think is going to be amazing.
Yeah, and he's definitely Harry Mudd, too. He's got a big beard. And, Yeah, I am too. I've heard a lot of fans are like, well, he doesn't look like Roger Carmel or whatever. It's like, who cares? I mean, it's like Bill said before, this is a whole new show.
I think he bears a resemblance.
Yeah.
I mean, you shave. if you were to shave his beard off and give him a little handlebar mustache,
right, and shave in a little, receding hairline a little bit, and sure, add 80 pounds, and Well, we're looking forward to watching that episode next week. I hope that our listeners will join us. I want to thank my guests for joining me on this show. And if you want more Star Trek talk, you can catch Bill's episode in our feed back on Enterprising Individuals, which you can find on Apple Podcasts or on our website at enterprisingindividuals.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter at EISTPod. Bill, where can people find you online?
They can find me online. I'm on Facebook as William Leisner, and I'm on Twitter as @BLeisner.
Okay. And Ella, where can people find you?
generationsgeek.com, or you can follow the Generations Geek Instagram, which is just @GenerationsGeek.
What are you fielding on the Generations Geek Instagram?
Pretty much at this point, anything I want. I'm doing lots of Instagram stories. If I see something cool, like on Saturday, I went to the release of the Szechuan sauce, the Rick and Morty sauce at McDonald's.
You're right.
So I thought that qualified for an Instagram story.
Did you manage to get any?
No, there were 20 packets sent to the McDonald's, I guess every McDonald's. And so me and my boyfriend, who also went, we got numbers 37 and 38.
Oh, no.
So we got Rick and Morty exclusive art stickers, but we didn't get any posters or any sauce.
Oh, okay.
It's conspiracy, Morty.
Yeah, I heard that was pretty much the case all throughout the country, and people aren't happy about it.
Yeah, well, everybody was pretty salty where I was, but I honestly think that the McDonald's corporate were just like, here's 20 packets of sauce, just like, people are gonna show up and just give it to them.
Right.
And it seemed the employees were stressed.
Oh, I can imagine.
Just in case there are some kids who like the cartoons that come in.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
man.
were lots of, like, tweens with their moms who, like, did not know what to do.
And everybody got salty like a teriyaki dipping sauce.
Oh, definitely.
That's horrible. Well, anyway, thanks for checking out our sauce this week, listeners. Thanks again to Bill and Ella. And until the next show, this is Caliban saying for Bill and Ella, live long and prosper.